Shirley here with Dallas Moon, and this is a Moon Hour. I was just reading that Emmanuel Macron notified that he will not take part in the committee to acknowledge Palestine in the UN. Now, to be very honest, as an Israeli, I find this exciting that there's going to be such committee because it brings me back to the declarations of independence of Israel. I know this is funny for people who are outside of this conflict, but it is really an exciting moment. And as an astrologer, it is even more exciting. So immediately, I decided to take a look at the coming moon aspects for 17 to 21 June. And the importance, when we look at the Declaration of Independence, you can watch my Jupiter Point of Thales Declarations of Independence, astrological considerations, and you can watch it also in Spirit of Matter. There's a whole series where I did the study live of this topic, and I want to talk about the good things and the challenging things in the coming 3 days. So, good thing, the moon is going to be going through Ashvini Nakshatra today, and then today and tomorrow, and then to Baharani Nakshatra, and then to Nakshatra Kritika. The moon will be in Aries today, and then tomorrow in Taurus, where it is exalted. Uranus is already in Gemini. Why I love the fact that Uranus is already in Gemini. Israel has Uranus in Gemini. United States has Uranus in Gemini. Israel has one of the most advanced declarations of independence, legally speaking, and also the United States. And so I know it is sounding funny for the entire world, but astrologers look at things from the perspective of, is that a good election or not a good election? And with Uranus in Gemini, the topic of civil wars, that the winner is the one that gives the most human rights and abolishes slavery the best, is fantastic 7-8 years that we're going to have for multiple astrological declarations of independence. Every declaration of independence has a timing, and the placement of the moon and Uranus in Gemini both give us a moon in a good position. So if there's going to be a declaration of independence for any country, okay, I heard that there was actually a part of France that wanted to declare independence and it didn't work out that well. And for any country, the moon is exalted. The moon is in Taurus in the coming few days. Now, the challenges. Okay, so the good news, the moon is exalted, the moon rules the people. And this is something that I have been saying in, each and every channel that I have. Take a look at the moon, take a look at the ruler of the fourth. For the fourth house, you would need the ascendant, and that would require time. But on an overall look, we have good positions for declarations of independence in the coming days in that regard, and in the coming 7-8 years with Uranus in Gemini. Another thing, what the challenge is that Saturn is in Aries, for example, and Saturn is conjoining Neptune, ruling over Pluto. I would prefer to keep away from the Saturn-Neptune, because look at all the natural, not natural disasters that are happening with the floods and people losing their homes, risks of pandemics, and all those upturns. Pluto in Aquarius is fantastic because this is the time of the French Revolution, yet again supporting an overall spirit of more decentralization, separation of both religion and the state, separation of religion and the state, separation. Do it better than us Israelis, do it better, be more secular than Israelis. We are still dealing with the Jewish and democratic country for 70 something years, and we all know why with the Jewish, because there was Holocaust and so on and so forth. But I think for Palestinians that they were persecuted like the Jews. However, Palestinian is not a religion, which is important. So they have better advantage because they can, if they do declare independence, they don't have to keep the church with the state, and they don't have to be religious. I know it's not the spirit of the forces that we see in public in Palestine today. I talk a lot about those topics and how challenging it is, but I want to talk about the good things. Saturn in Aries is challenging. Okay, it's a very challenging placement for Aries. Mars conjoining Ketu. Mars conjoining Ketu is very challenging because this is a very karmic timestamp, and Ketu gives us less material things. So for the United Nations, including Israel, it would be preferred for Palestinians to declare independence because this would be like Germany after the Second World War. Okay, it would take time for Palestine to build an army. When it comes to think about Germany after the Second World War. Right now, Germany is the greatest contributor to NATO, but that wasn't always the case. Think about Japan as well. Right now, Japan is in NATO, but that wasn't always the case. And so I do think that the fact that Mars with Ketu is purging the materialization of conflict, which can result in conflict in the beginning, and the purging of a conflict, can give us an election that we are purging the military forces that were there, and that can bring Israel to being more soft about acknowledging the new brother in town, okay, if indeed that happens. I know that Canada and US did not want, and they put stress over Macron, and yet there are so many stress about that topic from so many levels that I just treated that astrologically, what happens if it happens, what would the Declaration of Independence be like from astrological perspective. When it comes to Mars and Venus, this is another challenge. Venus is in Gemini, it's an air sign. She cruised through Aldebaran, and now she is safe in Gemini. She will be co-present with Uranus, which is great. Mercury in its shade period tells us that there would need to be refinement, and they would need to go over things. But she's applying to square Mars, and she's squaring the nodes. The square of Venus and Mars is actually challenging. It is, by the way, Hamas has harmonic aspect between Venus and Mars. Okay, so they got support of both the Martian people, the Venusian people. Okay, and the Venus-Mars square tells us that there can be conflicts between genders. Okay, sexes or genders, or both. So that is another thing. From the Ubermensch perspective, we are losing the conjunction with Chiron this evening, so it's very likely not going to be. But in the 50s, Aries will ingress into Taurus. And so the fact that Mars is with Ketu, we are purging the old projects of Ubermensch, which means that the cloning will pay more emphasis on the Venusian and less emphasis on the Martian. This is something that is expected in the 50s, and that can be another facet of why now, why thinking about the country now, why have a new country with Mars in so close to Ketu, why have that committee now, and so on and so forth, because this gives us more strength to the Venus. She's squaring the nodes, but it is emphasizing the Venus in the sign of technology, where Uranus will go over Venus, but the projects of the building superhuman and so on and so forth in the 50s are moving to accentuate the Venusian more, and we already see the sparks of it with exploring the soft femme, the trad wife, and we see that as oppressive. Well, it was also oppressive towards the men, okay, but we are basically seeing going through the archetypes of the feminine before the 50s, where Aries will ingress into Venus sign, which is bad news for everyone, because anyway, those projects are bad news for most people. They affect us just in a way that is quite harmful. So the other facet of Aries conjoining Chiron in Aries has to do with sovereignty, but also re-including. And the Palestinians were very disincluded in the past century. And there is perhaps a chance with Aries in Andromeda constellation for the Palestinians to be re-included. Again, super intricate topic. It's not about moralistic perspective. Aries is just the one that was not invited. And now, basically, in Andromeda constellation, she is a part of the table. She's a part of the conversation, but she's also a part of creating a Trojan War. Okay? Where Rao in Aries, in conjuncting Aries, eclipse, was the outbreak of 7th October, but more than that, the global intifada and the support of LGBTQ movement in the Palestine, the watermelon.com, okay? And whether that was a bubble, that was a this, that was a that, is simply the astrological signification that we saw, which was a form of re-including with all the reality checks around that. Okay, Muslim Brotherhood of Satan, for example. Yes, gender-affirming care that is mandatory to children as being recognized supposedly as LGBTQ. Okay, there were also the reality check of that. What does it mean to be included? Which I guess a lot of Palestinians are having that, as well. Other things, well, first of all, when the moon ingresses into Taurus, it squares Pluto, and preferred is to wait to the next nakshatra, which would be Bharani nakshatra, and Bharani nakshatra might be perhaps more supportive in the time where Pluto is in the beginning degree of Aquarius. We don't want the moon to be harshly aspected, definitely not by an outer planet, absolutely not by Pluto. Okay, and this is important because Pluto hard aspects to the moon. Moon is housing, moon is the people, moon is self-nourishment. Think about the fact that Palestinian people lived under Hamas, which had the moon in Capricorn, which is the moon at its detriment. And how even during the war, even the aid that comes to them is being confiscated, not only by external forces, but also internally. And this is how a military organization that put the people at the frontier, okay, and you can argue that about the IDF as well. Like, I'm Israeli, we've been having, missiles dropping on us and so on. And 7th October, which is kind of like an MK Ultra satanic project. But from astrological perspective, having moon that is so compromised made it very, very challenging for the needs of safety of the people to be met. Okay? This is why moon in Bharani nakshatra can be very remediating, but we want to wait after the square with Pluto. More things that I think about. Sun in Cancer. Sun is applying to Procyon, which would mean it would have Sun midheaven to Israel if that is in the coming days. And Sun Procyon is an excellent aspect which is said to be the atomic equilibrium. But this will come from populist leaders, okay? Because Sun is leadership, Sun in the sign of Cancer is still populist, leaders that are representing the people or leaders that are turning to the people, which can be taken both satirically and cynically, but also genuinely and authentically. Sun Procyon is fantastic for an equilibrium in the Middle East when it comes to nuclear energy. Okay, Israel has midheaven on Procyon, ascendant on Spica. This is why people have such a hard time with Israel, because they are required to take a look at themselves and see face to face that they don't really offer conditions that are better in terms of most things. They have to look at it. It's like, oh, what is Israel doing in Palestine? MK Ultra project, satanic ritual abuse. That's American. What is Israel doing with the pedophiles, with the children? MK Ultra projects, which is an intelligence, and Epstein stuff. Okay. Why is Israel castrating the look at the death and concentration camps in United States 2025? It's very challenging. One would have to tend to both that and that, which is why it's so difficult to litigate Israel and be and take a win. It's not because Israel is so powerful, it's just that Israel is so comfortable for everybody to hide their skeletons deep inside their own closets. That's the how and why it was difficult to hold Israel accountable for the wrong things it did, because they were not all that more wrong than the rest of the planet. And so Sun in Procyon will facilitate that type of country that is both in terms of atomic relations or power relations, not easy to replace, not easy to not easy to get rid of. Okay, which is important for any country in the Middle East if it is well placed. Other things. In the coming 15 years, Pluto will be in Aquarius, Neptune will be in Aries. What they need to be cautious of is not to make Aries the 7th house or the 12th. And that is, although they would have Spica, let's say, on the ascendant, they would have Neptune, which is permeability, and 7th house can be borders, especially with Saturn. So that can be, okay, that can be an issue. More things to say. We've covered the outer planets, we've covered Aries, we've covered Chiron. I even tended to Mercury. So those are the coming days. Do I predict there to be a declaration of independence for the Palestinians? They might go for something, and the coming days are all in all good, even very good. It's the exalted moon. Just beware of when the moon is conjuncting Chiron, which will be, tomorrow, I believe, and for when the moon is ingressing to Taurus. In the beginning, it is squaring Pluto, which is not a good time for declarations of independence. If they do declare independence in the coming days, whether in the UN or not, this is going to be a very exalted moon, and that would be very exciting for me as a person who tended to astrological declarations of astrological considerations for declarations of independence. I would be very curious to read the contents of that declaration, and to see what does it bring. Okay, what are the legal things that are included. Yes, when it comes to Jupiter, Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. It's leaving a square with Saturn and Neptune. Great time Even when we talk about religion, it's not giving ultra religion. It can be, even if it is more traditional, it can be, yes, an exalted Jupiter that emphasizes choice, and yes, and all in all, I like that position for Jupiter. Just hopefully it won't be like the 8th house or something like the US, because Jupiter in the 8th house increases traumas. Okay, so that is the cautionary tale. Very, very exciting. I believe we will have a lot of declarations of independence in the coming years, and for me it would be fascinating to go over them with you and to see what declarations of independence are actually good for the people. If I manage to change even one declaration of independence with a better election for the people, then as far as I'm concerned with that series, with all the channels that were intercepted, the megalithic weird things that I've undergone in my life, that would be for me, I did my job.